There's a reason Democrats seem more nervous about voting maps and voter ID than they do about inflation, crime, or whether people can afford groceries anymore. Because one of those conversations actually threatens political power.
Tennessee! 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 Stand up, fight back when voting rights are under attack. What do we do? Stand up, fight back when voting rights are under attack.
Yeah. Looking at this energy here carefully now. The protests, the chants, the signs, the language, everything immediately escalates to Jim Crow. Everything immediately escalates to racism, to moral emergency. And for a long time, that strategy, it worked politically, I'm telling y'all. But the problem for Democrats now is people are less emotionally controlled by those accusations than they used to be. And that's what things are starting to change, because once voters start separating actual racism from political branding tactics, the conversation changes completely. And a lot of Americans, including minorities, have started asking a question. Democrats obviously hate hearing, it's their literal kryptonite. If these districts were designed around race in the first place, why is changing them suddenly unacceptable? That question alone really changes the whole tone of the debate, especially when criticism starts coming from Black conservatives instead of Republicans. Democrats can easily dismiss. So let's go ahead and roll a clip.
The way that y'all are acting about the passing of this Voters' Rights Act is the main reason why it needs to happen. And it thoroughly proves my point that everything is racial. All y'all care about is race. Because it was unconstitutional to begin with. Because why are y'all making congressional maps based off of race? Oh, I'll tell you why. It was because the Democrats needed a mapped out consensus of their plantations and the Negroes who inhabited them. Which is why I'm so happy about what's about to go down here in the great state of Tennessee, especially Memphis. See, what you have to realize is Memphis, Tennessee is the largest Black Democratic city within the state. And out of the state of Tennessee, Memphis is the most problematic. And when you think about Democratic cities, and it's just not Memphis, it's practically anywhere in the United States. And see, when it comes down to these Democratic cities, the mission is chaos. And Memphis is nothing but chaos. See, the Democratic plan is nothing but to seek, kill, and destroy. And see, when it comes down to Black communities, it's their job, it's the Democrats' job to keep Black people uneducated and misinformed. Because see, out of the whole state of Tennessee, Memphis is number one in crime. And also in Memphis, our children, most of them can't even read past third grade level. Which is so sad that when issues like these arise, that you see an influx of such misinformed and uneducated Black folks. The Supreme Court did not suppress the Black vote. It's just making it fair. They're just not going to be drawing maps based off the color of someone's skin. The Democrats are actually going to have to work for our vote. See, the Democrats had a control on the Black vote. They knew that in Shelby County, when it came down to the Democrats, they would win. They know that if they redraw these maps, that it's a pretty good chance that they just may lose. They're afraid that that Democratic leash is about to come off. So they're doing all they can to fearmonger Memphians by throwing in that dash of racism and telling you that you are being oppressed yet again. And to make matters worse, to add on to the racism fact, why are they putting race with parties? So only Blacks are Democrat? I definitely know some white liberals. I definitely know some white Democrats. I definitely know some Black Republicans because, hey, I won. So why are Democrats making this out to be strictly about Black people and their vote? That's because they know that we as Black people are afraid of change. They see that our Republican constituents is kicking ass and taking names, and they're really creating change. They see that their plan is working. Democrats thrive off crime, and our Republican Party is trying to clean up the crime. They have been against the Memphis Safe Task Force ever since President Trump announced that he would send them here. That's why it's unbelievable when I said that I saw a difference in my neighborhood. It was just so unbelievable that their plan actually worked. No one, no Democrat from Memphis, Tennessee has came to my neighborhood to see if what I said was even true. But you know who did? My Republican constituents. Feel a great change on the horizon for Shelby County. Thanks to Senator Marsha Blackburn and Governor Bill Lee, there is a special session starting tomorrow about redrawing these congressional maps. And with the full support of our awesome President Donald J. Trump, there's a possibility that we could see Memphis go red. So it's time for a change. And I'm here for it. And before I go, one more thing. The possibility of the Democratic seat really not meaning anything, hopefully. Is it worth the two people that's running? I mean, you have Steve Cohen and then you have Justin Pearson. It's like asking, do you want gonorrhea or do you want syphilis?
Damn.
Memphis deserves better.
See, this right here is what creates panic inside modern Democrat politics. Not just conservative voters, independent Black voters. You know, because the Democratic Party got very comfortable assuming, Black voting blocks would stay politically loyal no matter what. Now that assumption is obviously fickle. That's why these reactions feel so emotional, because if black people began prioritizing results over political tradition, entire campaign strategy start working just like that. I'm over here snapping. I'm out. We'll make a little song. And whether people agree with, how you say her name, Delisha, completely or not, he's touching the nerve Democrats have struggled with for years. Why does every conversation involving minority communities immediately become centered about race before results? That's the real question. Especially in cities that have been controlled by the same leadership for decades, while schools decline, crime rises, businesses leave, and residents keep getting told the real issue is everybody else. Eventually, people start, looking around and asking, okay, what actually improved? And social media made this harder for Democrats, to manage. People compare policies now and revisit old clips now and fact-check narratives in real time now. So the old system where media narratives lasted for months, that's gone. Which is why, Wesley Hunt's clip matters so much when we finna get into it. Because he's speaking calmly, but what he's saying politically is rather explosive.
They just call you racist, and that game's over now.
Newsflash, it is not 1964 anymore in America. And while the left doesn't want to admit that people like me exist, that people like John James exist, that people like Byron Burgess Owens, who is a United States congressman in Utah, and last I checked, I don't think there's very many Black people in Utah. We have come a long way in this country. And the fact that the four of us represent white majority districts means that we are, as I always say, being judged not by the color of our skin, but by the content of our character. And then what these liberals are trying to do is to keep minority groups and keep Black and brown people on the Democrat plantation by saying that the only way you can have anything in this country is if we give it to you, if we draw you a district with all minorities in it, that will ensure that you have a minority in that seat. How about this? I got an idea for you. Be a good candidate, work hard, serve this country. You may not always win, but at least put your name on a ballot and then let the people choose between who they want to see to be their leader in those congressional districts. And you would be surprised that people could really care less about the color of one's skin. It's time to put up our best and brightest, regardless of what your race is. And what we have are a lot of Black people, especially on the Democrat side, that are simply there because their entire districts are minorities, and they're proud of that. And see, what I want to talk about is the progress that we have made from 1964 to 2026.
Now, Wesley Hunt just explained something Democrats still haven't fully processed yet. You know, the race card doesn't end conversations the way that it used to. It just don't. That doesn't mean racism doesn't exist. That's not what we're saying. It means voters are becoming more skeptical of how often the accusations gets weaponized politically. And Hunt's existence complicates the entire narrative. You know, the whole narrative structure Democrats prefer. A black Republican winning in a white majority district. That forces people to confront something uncomfortable. Maybe voters are becoming more politically independent than activists actually expected. And honestly, some Democrats still talk about minority voters in a way that feels strangely outdated. You know, the message sometimes sound like empowerment or less like empowerment, if you ask me, and more like you need us to succeed. Because Americans, especially younger voters, are getting tired of every issue being filtered entirely through race first, country second. And once that mindset starts changing, you know, conversations about voting laws start sounding different, which brings us to voter ID. Roll it.
We should have the Save America Act. We should have voter identification, voter ID. We should have proof of citizenship. We should have mail-in voting for the military and people that need it, but not for everybody. Because anytime you have mail-in voting, they're going to cheat. And they cheat like dogs. And they have to cheat. You know?
Well. You like dogs. How does a dog cheat? Anywho, this is what Democrats run into a messaging problem with normal everyday Americans, because most people hear proof of citizenship and voter ID and think, man, that sounds pretty reasonable. That's why the left really struggle with this issue politically. Not because activists online, you know, oppose it. It's because average people don't understand why securing elections is controversial in the first place. And every time Democrats react to voter ID laws like democracy itself is collapsing, they accidentally push moderates further away. Because, you know, regular Americans already use identification for almost everything important in life. Driving, banking, travel, medicine, employment. And when voting becomes the one area where asking for identification is treated like oppression, more people naturally start questioning the logic. And the more aggressively Democrats attack these conversations, the more suspicious, we're going to become. That's the irony. But this last clip explains why emotions around Trump and politics feel so intense right now. You know, because for many Americans, this stopped being about one politician a long time ago.
Here is why Donald Trump is causing so much chaos. America has always been a dragon with multiple heads. China, Canada, Russia, Ukraine, Africa, Europe, the Vatican, the Church, Islam, all of these places and more has always worked together against the people. It doesn't matter whether it was Bill Clinton or George Bush or Obama. They have always worked together with other countries to build up power and a system that worked cross-country to control the people. Sure, that control may look different in China versus America, in Iran versus America, in Canada versus America. These pieces of control may look different. However, it was still orchestrated by the same people. America knows very well what's going on in Iran, and they want to keep it that way. America knows very well what's going on in China, and they want to keep it that way. Because if you keep the people divided, if you keep the people under your thumb, if you keep the people unknowing of the truth, then they can keep control. As long as they stay on top, that's all that matters. Why did it change once Donald Trump got in charge? Because Donald Trump went against the status quo. And like every Democrat politician has been telling you ever since he got in office, Donald Trump is destroying their version of democracy. everything that they've built against you for decades upon decades, everything that they've used to keep you under their thumb, Donald Trump is destroying. He's coming in with a big hammer and he's crushing it all. And because we're so used to being under their slavery tactics, it feels like Donald Trump is doing something horrible. It feels like he's hurting us. It feels like he's attacking people for no reason. It feels like he's just hating on people and he's being racist and he's being evil. But what he's truly doing is he's destroying the foundation in which these elite politicians have kept you enslaved physically, mentally, emotionally, financially. In order to build something up greater, you have to tear down the false structures. And every time Donald Trump takes a piece of power from them, yes, it's going to hurt you a bit. You're going to feel it at the gas pumps. You're going to feel it when you see it on TV. You're going to feel it when you see people crying and complaining that things aren't getting better. Things are not changing. Donald Trump is not living up to what he said he was going to do. Do not believe the hype. Do not believe the media that's been lying to you all these decades. Do not believe the politicians that's been lying to you all of these decades. They didn't count on Donald Trump waking up and going against them, just like they didn't count on the people being wise enough and courageous enough to stand with them, even though they're receiving persecution from everybody around them. They did not count on MAGA. They did not count on God. But here we are. Wake up. The reason why there's so much chaos is because God is here now. He's causing the chaos. He's breaking everything apart. He's waking you up. He's opening the gates. He is breaking the chains. When Moses came to free people from Egypt, Pharaoh made it harder for them. And they turned against Moses. We would have been better off, Moses, if you did not come back to help us. Now Pharaoh is punishing us more. But God always had a response. And at the end of it, God pulled them away from slavery. You gotta be able to roll with the punches, and you gotta be able to have faith in God, because He is 100% freeing you from the slavery of the beast system that has kept you under their thumb for decades upon decades. Wake up. God bless.
Now, obviously, that clip is spiritual and heartfelt, but underneath all of it is a feeling millions of Americans relate to, right? They believe powerful institutions stopped respecting ordinary people a long time ago. Government, media, universities, corporate press, political elites. And whether, someone agrees with every word in that clip or not, ignoring why this message resonates would be a mistake. People are exhausted, man. Exhausted of being talked down to, exhausted of being labeled immoral for disagreeing politically, exhausted of hearing that everything is historic while everyday life keeps getting more expensive and unstable. And Democrats still haven't figured out that fear-based messaging is completely losing its effectiveness. Calling people racist, calling people a threat to democracy, constitutional republic, calling people extremists. That strategy worked better when Americans trusted institutions more than they do now, but trust collapsed. And once trust collapses, people stop automatically believing political narrative just because a famous person or media outlet repeated them confidently. That's what's really changing politically, not just voting maps, not just Trump, not just social media. America's becoming harder to emotionally manage. And whether Democrats admit it publicly or not, that is the part that makes them nervous. So, if you made it to the end of this video, I want you to put harder to manage. I think I'm going to start doing something different too. I'm going to start putting the word of the day or phrase of the day somewhere in the middle of the video versus the end. So you have to watch to catch it. Y'all be safe. Go check with somebody today. You can quite literally be saving their life.